Derrick Bell shook up the academic world when he took a leave of absence from Harvard University's prestigious School of Law. He said he would not return until the faculty gave a tenured position to a woman of color. Anyone who was surprised could not have known Derrick Bell, a longtime civil rights activist and attorney. He has advanced the issue of racism in both the study and practice of law. He is currently a visiting professor at New York University School of Law and the author of an allegorical new book on racism, Faces at the Bottom of the Well. Welcome back.
Thank you, Charlie.
What's new about the Harvard situation? I mean, where does that stand today? Just bring me up to speed.
I haven't been there. I gather the dean has called together faculty and students, and they want to try to heal the community. Because the community's rift is not based on my actions, because they've had this very serious ideological split there for years between the traditional law teachers and those who think about the law in traditional ways, basic principles or neutral principles, and the newer law and economics at one end, and critical legal studies who say all law is indeterminate, it's just the manifestation of the power structure and what have you. One thing I can say about Harvard is that at least the debate, while quite strident and messy, is real. The thing is, if you go around law schools that are less famous than Harvard, there's all kinds of backbiting and sneaky little tricks going on among faculty, particularly with regard to who gets hired and who gets promoted. And often enough, the issues involved are not nearly as important as they are in the Harvard debate.
Does anybody ever say to you, Derrick, you don't need this fight? I mean, there are other times. Go write your books and stay at Harvard. I mean, that's where, that's a place for you. And what are you doing?
Almost everybody says that.
Yeah.
I saw
those who wish you well say that.
That's right. I saw Thurgood Marshall, who hired me after I left the Justice Department, protesting them, wanting me to give up my NAACP membership back in 1957.
Right.
And Thurgood said, "Boy, go back to Harvard."
Because?
Well, he didn't elucidate, but the others who do feel that
you were setting that you were creating a kind of frontier there.
Yeah. That I could do more there than you could do outside because of the prestige of the place, the platform, the resources.
And you said what? That my conscience will not allow me to do that, or that I can make a bigger wave because of the significance of the protest?
I think that you have to be honest with yourself, and it's easy to kind of say, yes, well, I could do more from within. I don't think that's so. I think that the message, I teach constitutional law, I teach civil rights, but the message I teach is really my life. And my life is, my experience is that beyond a reasonable tolerance, you don't have to take a lot of stuff from people. That you confront them, that if it means you have to leave, you have to leave. I didn't quit at Harvard. I took a protest leave, and they then said, well, our 2-year rule means you can't stay on leave, and so you're out of there.
So come back and...
That's right. I asked for an extension of the leave. They said, no, we're not going to give it to you. But I think that while I'm not there, my message still rings true. I preach that all the time.
Which is?
Preach that you take risk and you make sacrifices for the things you believe in. Yeah. And I think that message is best made through practice.
Are you disappointed that civil rights and race is not an issue in this campaign in terms of a significant debate about how this country comes to grips with racism?
Disappointed, not surprised. I think that the part of the basis for my conclusion that racism is permanent is when you look at the long view over 300 years, you see that virtually all civil rights gains, policies from the Emancipation Proclamation on, have come at a time when to grant that, ending slavery, for example, with the Emancipation Proclamation, would aid white America or significant segments of white America. Every one, affirmative action, the Brown decision, if you look behind all of the flag waving, that's what you see. Now, that's not necessarily evil, but that's the way it is. On the other hand, when by sacrificing black rights or black interests, there is perceived that a gain then that's what's happening. And what both the Bush forces and regrettably the Clinton forces have decided is that it is not politically helpful to make a big issue of race. And so neither of them are doing it, except, of course, the Nixon is still, Nixon, isn't that interesting? Bush is still looking around for the Willie Horton that may help him get reelected, as the whole idea of Willie Horton.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem to be a race card, does it?
Well, it
seems to be more of a draft card.
Well, no, I think that the whole family values has racial implications. The idea, look at all those broken families in the black community and the unwed mothers and all. That we're against that. You see, that's what the Democrats are for. Those are the people they support. So it's sort of the criminal element in one election and the welfare element, thinly veiled. But Americans are very skilled at reading, what is it, the literary people call it, the subtext in issues like that.
Yeah, but it seems to me that the problem with this is if you begin to say that when everybody talks about family values, it's a question of race, and you're not saying that, but if you talk about it just as a question of race, then you lose the opportunity to make a very positive point. I believe that family values are important, and I believe they are in the fullest sense of that. I mean, just as crime is
very important and a critical issue.
Yeah.
But it's the way it's used and manipulated, and it's amazing without anybody ever going to school. Maybe I'm paranoid, but I think that American whites, are able to read through the positive. Those are the things that we would say are positive about family values, and see this hidden subtext that you must stand with us, even white people, even though your situation is hardly better economically than most of those blacks that you're looking down on. We are the ones that you must look to for guidance, for support, for leadership, you see.
The most disturbing thing about what you believe, and what bothers me and which I want to disagree with you, is that somehow you believe that you see no light at the end of the tunnel.
Wrong. But go ahead. I don't think that's so.
Okay, tell me.
But it's tough. You
don't think racism is permanent?
I do think it's permanent.
Yeah, but then how can you see life at the end of the tunnel
Because racism is an evil. I think our obligation
racism
is an evil. I think our obligation as human beings, the miracle of our lives, is to recognize evils and try to do something about it. We always hope that it's going to all work out, but it seems the obligation and the potential for satisfaction, for triumph even, is in the commitment to do something about it. I guess if I wanted to be more specific, I would say that racism will remain permanent as long as we continue to see it as Gunnar Myrdal. And most of us saw it in the 40s and 50s. Dilemma. That's right, as an aberration, as a defect that was curable by better laws and what have you. It's much deeper than that.
And so what's the cure?
I think first recognizing what is the disease.
That's the first step.
That's right. And that's what I've tried to do. Although with the problem that you just raised in your question, that people say, "Wow, Bell is just totally despairing." How a woman accosted me at a breeding down in Washington and said, "How dare you, black woman?" She says, "How dare you take away hope from our children?"
Yeah.
And of course, just as when I was arguing to the courts, I had a great answer about 2:00 the next morning.
Which was?
Which was that what you read in my book as despairing is what I've gotten from looking at the condition of our people in the inner city, the infant death rates, the horrible employment levels. The employment must be in the black community in the inner city 50, 60, 70%. I said it's out of that is this, not my book.
Tell me how good a job, let's assume all the things in terms of the clear, all the indictments that you can lay against white America, against the structure in America, against the economic system in America, all things you and I have talked about before. What's the responsibility of African American leadership here, and what truths ought they be saying to those that they have credibility with, i.e. leaders? That's why I'm saying they. What's their obligation, to make a difference?
It varies over time from the things that John Jacobs might say at the Urban League at one end are appropriate to a very tough task. How do you keep raising money from corporate entities? You have to come forward with programs that they are going to support, even though some of us might think those programs aren't really what most of the people need, you see. All the way to the other extreme where you have the Louis Farrakhans or what have you, who say things that cause some of us to pull back.
Farrakhan?
I think Farrakhan has a lot of following, and I think
we know that. I mean, what do you think of his message?
Oh, I think that some of the message is very positive. I think some of the message I don't agree with.
Yeah. But can you step forward? And I mean, I've interviewed Farrakhan at length. And talked to him about it, and had tough battles with him certainly about anti-Semitism, and how his perception and why he feels the way he does. But it was a reluctance of Jesse Jackson even to speak out against some of those things. In fact, now,
you know why that is?
Why?
Because you see the whole
because
context.
white America wants him to speak out against it, and therefore it's
not only that, but that. Some portions of white America are willing to have the man denounced entirely because of elements.
Right.
I don't see that happening in the white community. I see weaknesses on this part, but no one comes and when somebody, a white person makes it. At the Republican convention, there was a lot of not very veiled anti-Semitic comments. No one has said Derrick Bell denounced those guys. You see. So I have to
what at the Republican
at the Buchanan and some of the comments that were kind of close to the line, and no one has come and said Derrick Bell denounced him. But if Farrakhan makes a comment that is deemed anti-Semitic, then I'm asked to do it. Yeah,
but Patrick Buchanan has been denounced by people even like William Buckley, in an entire issue of the National Review, taking him to task on anti-Semitism.
Well, that's right, but why come to me?
For
Farrakhan. What's the reason for that?
I'm not sure anybody's coming to you, but I'm raising the question of how do we all address the question of racism in America and the responsibility of African Americans, responsibility of white America.
And I think the answer to that is the same for both groups.
Yeah.
And that is facing up to the real problem, and that's tough.
I'm out of time, but what do you want people to get out of Faces at the Bottom of the Well?
The fact is that, as I indicate in the title, that most whites are only 1-2 levels above blacks, and they keep looking down, mesmerized, instead of moving up.
Derrick Bell, it's a pleasure to have you always come back.